Hey everyone, welcome back to Earning Confidence. I have a very, very special show today, a very special guest. This is one I've been looking forward to. So to be honest with you, when I had the thought of starting a podcast, you were the first person that popped into my head. So very special to have this person next to me here. She's the author of this wonderful book here, Delirious, Bliss, Amanda Reed. She is also my cousin. That is not, I did not say all these nice things just because we're related. Yeah, I'm very happy to have you here. Thanks.
I am so happy you invited me.
Good. Well, we're going to get right into this. We'll do a little bit of background on you, and then we'll jump into the book. Where are you from?
A little bit of all over.
Yeah.
Grew up in Hickory, Chicago, We kind of bounced around a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Hickory Hills, southwest side of Chicago,
Yeah.
suburb. And you went to high school here in the Chicagoland area?
I went to high school in Pale Hills, Stag.
Okay.
Yeah.
So right next door. And then what about your parents? What did they do for a living?
Dad was a truck driver.
Hmm.
Still is. Mom, majority of childhood, she was a PCA, nurse's assistant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
In the healthcare field.
And how were you growing up? How were you as a kid? Would you say you were introverted, extroverted, outgoing?
Gear more toward introverted.
Yeah.
But not so much out of like shyness.
Okay.
But more as far as like kids and stuff went, I was more interested in what the adults were doing and stuff like that. You know, like I always wanted to be on adult conversations. I wasn't really interested in them.
Okay. Interesting. Did you play sports?
No.
No sports.
No.
What about college? You go to college?
I tried it for a little bit.
Yeah.
Didn't
Me
work
too.
out. Didn't work out.
All right. So, no college, no organized sports, kind of introverted as a kid. What made you think one day, hey, I'm going to write a book?
Well, that was kind of like a gradual thought. The book started out as journals, my journals.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it was out of boredom one day or out of my organizational OCD, but I started to organize like my journals, and I noticed that there were like themes and whatever. And I think one day I was kind of just looking over them and thought like, this might be like a chapter of something, or and that's kind of how it started out.
Interesting. And did you do any writing as a kid?
I did, actually, yeah. Like I've always been a much better writer than I was a speaker.
Okay.
Like it just comes out differently through my fingertips.
Oh, that's cool. And did you have were you a big reader? Did you read a lot of books?
Not as a kid.
Yeah.
I didn't start really reading a lot. I probably read my first book at like 19, 20.
Wow.
Yeah.
First book at 19 or 20.
Yeah.
Wow. That's interesting.
It is. It is.
And so you didn't have any like authors or anything that you looked up to or anything like that?
No, not growing up. And well, authors I looked up to. I mean, now looking back, this is kind of like a really weird answer. But have you ever read like this is probably an insult to writers everywhere. Have you ever read the Chelsea Handler books?
No, but
Okay.
I know who she is.
Okay. So I don't know if she writes her own books or what happens, but those were some of the first books that I read. And what sticks with me now is that you can hear, like I personally at least could hear her voice in my head.
Yeah.
And it made it all of that more funny, and that's always something that stuck with me, and that's been my favorite compliment thus far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. And so you wrote the book, and do you do any sort of like any other writing, like blogging or anything like that?
There is a blog on the website. I actually was just making a schedule today of a consistent blogging schedule that I need to start to stick to. But yeah, there's a blog on the website. I mean, I do a ton of writing, a ton.
Yeah.
Don't publish much of it. Not yet.
Well, so let's get back to that journaling. How long have you been doing that?
Forever.
Yeah.
Forever. That's definitely something I've always done.
So did you have a diary as a kid?
Yeah, diary. A lot of it came out in like when I was younger. There was a lot of poetry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. And that wasn't. Do you still write poetry?
Not really. I
No?
did it a few years ago. There's some I pumped out of me a few years ago,
Yeah.
but I haven't really intentionally sat down and written anything.
When you were writing the book, so I want to get back into how you decided, how you came upon the decision to write the book. So how old were you when you decided to write the book?
25.
Okay.
Had to be 25 or 26.
Now, I don't want to tell the world how old you are now, but how long ago was that?
About 5-6 years
Okay.
ago.
And when was the book published?
In March.
Of this year?
Yes.
So 5 or 6 years it took you to write the book?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
That's incredible that you stuck with it.
Yeah.
And
It definitely
finished
got
it.
put away quite a bit
Sure.
for months at a time, and then
Yeah.
pulled out for months at a time, and it was back and forth. But yeah, I never gave up on it.
Did you tell anybody you were writing it when you were writing it?
I told my then husband,
Okay.
and probably like my sister,
Yeah.
and my mom maybe, or you
No.
know, but it wasn't a public thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
And did they give you any sort of feedback?
I never gave it to them.
No, I mean like when you told them, "Hey, I'm writing a book."
Oh.
Were they like, "Oh, that's awesome," or like, "What are you
Oh
doing
yeah,
writing a book?"
my
or-
mom, and my sister definitely for
Yeah.
sure.
So
yeah.
you had some good
Always had some
encouragement.
cheerleaders. Yeah.
Great. That's awesome. And well, so let me ask you a question. How important do you think it is to have somebody like that in your life that gives you some encouragement like that?
Unless you are very, very strong-minded, it's very important.
Yeah.
People are very important.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when you were writing the book, you told them about it, but was there anybody that helped you with the book?
Actually, early on, I did. I mean, it's evolved a lot. And early on, I did maybe like the first or second draft. I had a couple people that I knew act as beta readers.
Okay.
But I quickly figured out that didn't work because they knew me and they didn't want to hurt my feelings.
Sure.
And, it wasn't constructive. And I look back on that draft now and I'm like, this is terrible. Like, this is absolutely awful.
Yeah.
I don't know why you would say anything nice about it. So that wasn't helpful. But yeah, I did give a couple of people, an inside look at it just to try that. But
So it took you, what would we say, 5 to 6 years to write it. And was this always the title, or did that change as well?
no, that was always the title.
Always the title.
Always.
Okay, so why don't you tell us, the title of the book is Delirious Bliss, The Secrets of Joy Through the Chaos of Life. So what is Delirious Bliss?
Well, life is life, and it has its peaks and it has its valleys, and I think we're all like really well aware of that. And it's delirious bliss is just being able to continue during those less than perfect times in life to find your joy and to acknowledge your blessings and find stability in what feels unstable. Just basically like finding your happiness in less than perfect moments.
Okay. I read the book, and I really enjoyed it. And I read a lot of self-improvement books, and not just saying this because you're here, but it's one of my favorites.
Yeah,
it really
yeah,
was.
yeah.
No, I really thought it was well written.
Thank you.
But what I would like to do is dive a little bit more into the concepts that you have in the book, because I think some of the concepts are fantastic, but I'd like to learn a little bit more about how you came up with them and how we can actually use them in our lives. So going off my notes here. So the first one here is, bliss can't exist without falling in love with life. Look for things to fall in love with. Kind words from another, a child's laughter. Is this gratitude?
Absolutely.
And is this something you've always been able to do?
No, definitely not.
So how do you work at it? What do you do to make this a habit?
Well, little things like that, like a child's laughter, a song that you resonate with, whatever it might be. Little things, that's how you build a gratitude practice, is recognizing the little things being, grateful for them. Like, and gratitude people think of as a thought. Like, I'm thankful to be here, like, but it's not. You have to turn it into an emotion.
Okay.
Gratitude has to be an emotion. And that is how you build your gratitude practice. But it does start with little things.
Yeah. So by recognizing these little things over time, we'll change it from thought to emotion, you think?
I think yes, but it has to. You have to like give details to yourself, right? To turn it into emotion. Like instead of just like, oh, I'm so happy to be here. It's great,
Yeah.
It's like, no, like Ron, seriously, like I admire you and Sarah so much. I love what you're doing in the world. I'm like super like honored, like I actually like feel it.
Yeah.
And you have to tell yourself like, okay, I'm grateful for this, but why? Why am I grateful?
Oh, okay. Next one. This one, I got to tell you, really hit me hard.
You
when
talk
I read
about,
it.
I already know what it is.
When I read it in the book, yeah, I got a little choked up when I read it, so I'll try to get through it without getting choked up again. What if it were true that when we eventually fall asleep in the arms of angels, before we get to our destination, we must sit through a period of time and feel the feelings we gave to others? It gives me chills just thinking about it again.
Me too.
So, is this something that did you come up with this, or is it something that you heard from somewhere else, or where did this come from?
This came from a conversation. I mean, I'm sure there's this idea floating around in the world somewhere, in different words, but this actually came from a conversation that I had with our cousin Stacy. And we used to have like a bunch of different kinds of spiritual conversations and just different ideas and whatever. And that idea formed in this conversation, and it resonated with me more than anything ever has in terms of karma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you believe in karma?
I do, but I don't believe that, it's like karma's a bitch. Like, I don't think it's out to get you. I just think it's about learning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the golden rule, right? And that there's consequences for your actions. And but reading this passage made me think that, it seemed very spiritual, right?
Mm-hmm.
So do you consider yourself a spiritual person?
Spiritual, yes.
Religious?
No. I kind of lost a lot of faith in whatever I believed around the age of 12 when my grandfather passed away. But then I kind of had a reawakening. I lived in Germany. I was in a really bad marriage, and I kind of had like a spiritual awakening there.
Really?
Yes.
So the next one, every moment spent regretting the past is a moment taken away from effort you could be putting in the present. So this is another one that hit me because I tend to live a lot in my past and beat myself up for, things I did when I was younger. So how do we stop living in regret?
You have to learn acceptance. Acceptance, I think, is the biggest thing. There's no going back. You cannot change it.
Mm-hmm.
Shoulda, coulda, woulda is completely pointless.
Yeah.
So once you accept that, you stay in the present more at that point, and you can do better and make better decisions and create a better future. But we can't hold on to the things we've messed up in the past.
Yeah. Easy, not simple, right?
No, exactly. It takes practice. Like
Yeah.
everything in this book takes practice.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so that's a good point. So is it a daily practice? Is it a moment by moment practice? I mean,
As intentionally as you can get about it.
Yeah.
I mean, moment by moment, I think is pretty unrealistic. We're human. We're not going to
Sure.
stay
Sure.
in, perfect thought all the time. But definitely daily, if you can, take 5-10 minutes a day, preferably at the end of the day. What happened today? Reflect on it, like do better tomorrow. It's intentional though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Progress, not perfection, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Got to keep reminding myself of that, but we always want it perfect, don't
Me
we?
too. Me too.
All right. So another one. To let go of your fear of judgment is to invite more personal freedom into your life. the desire to be liked all the time produces masks for you to wear, and by putting those masks on, you then let others take control of defining who you are. This is something that I struggle with a lot. Okay, I'm always trying to please people. I always I do stuff that I do things. So for example, let's say somebody's gossiping about somebody, and and they're telling me all their bad stuff, and then I might chime in with what I think is bad about them too, even though I don't want to gossip.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to make the other person feel good about what they're
Right,
saying.
right.
So how do we stop?
And I think
that?
stuff like that, like I'm guilty of that. We're all guilty of that kind of stuff. And I don't think that, that again is another kind of practice. But in general, I've come a long way with this actually.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't care. I mean, like they're whether you're being yourself or not, people are going to like you or they're not.
Sure.
And so like, I would rather have people like me that actually like me
Mm-hmm.
than who I'm trying to be.
Right.
Yeah, and I think we think of if someone doesn't like you, we think of that in a bad way.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of like you have to kind of reframe that. Like, who cares? It's just personality differences.
Sure.
It's not like it doesn't mean you're a bad person.
Mm-hmm.
There's plenty of people you don't like. There's plenty of people I don't like.
Right.
You can still be cordial, still be respectful, all of that.
Yeah.
You don't have to like everyone, and everyone doesn't have to like you.
Right. Yeah, it's a tough one. It's one I try to work on. I think I get better as I get older, right?
Me too. Yeah.
With age, I think I, kind of care less, but I still know when it's there. And,
Yeah. Yeah, and we all I still get in those situations
Yeah.
as well, especially the gossip thing. That does happen. That happens.
Well, and I feel like sometimes it can hold me back from doing certain things. So like for example, the YouTube channel or the podcast and stuff, it took me so long to get those started because I was so afraid of what people were going to say, or what they were going to think, or,
yes,
what was
absolutely.
going to go on behind my back. And,
Yeah, I mean, this stuff comes from all of my personal journals.
Yeah, right.
I feel you. I really do.
Yeah.
But I just, it just at some point I was like, it doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
It'll resonate with someone.
Why did you write the book? Why did you feel the need to pull your journal thoughts together, put them into a book, and put it out there?
Because everything in here for a very long time helped me survive mentally. And one day I was looking over them and I said, I can't be the only one. I cannot be the only one that struggles with these things, that needs to overcome these things, do these exercises, whatever. And that's kind of how the idea formed, was because of my struggles.
And now you said you lived in Germany and you were in what did you say, a bad marriage?
Yeah. Probably worse than bad.
Yeah. So how long were you married?
I was married for 5.5 years.
5.5 years. Okay. And what brought you to Germany?
He was military.
Oh, okay. And what, if you don't mind me asking, made the marriage bad?
Very emotionally and mentally abusive, financially abusive, controlling. The only thing I pretty much did not go through was physical abuse.
Mm-hmm. And was that kind of the whole time, or did it start after a certain point?
No, it was definitely the whole time. The day I got to Germany, it pretty much started.
Okay.
Yeah.
But no indications before that, before you guys were married, or?
There was.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Kind of how I fell into it was I made the choice to ignore a lot of red flags. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, love is blinding, right?
Yes. Well,
So,
I saw it. I just was like, whatever, it's
Sure.
fine.
yeah. So what then finally made you take those blinders off, and what was the straw kind of that broke the camel's back, I guess?
There wasn't really one straw. We lived in Germany. There were very, very dark times for me there. We moved to Tennessee. I started working again outside of the home. And, little by little, I started to like I had friends. I laughed a little bit more. I would go out, you know, like have fun here and there. And I started to remember a little bit more of who I was. And then we got back to Illinois. I was around my old friends and my family. And I started to remember a little bit more. I started to remember that I was actually loved. And, you know, I started to get back to myself more and more. And that was the gradual process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you said he was very controlling. Like, can you just give us some examples of how did he control you?
There's a very wide range, I guess. On the smaller side, it was just like constant criticism and put downs and stuff like that. On the larger scale, he tracked my vehicle. He at one point, we went through a whole year of like he made up an addiction that he had, and we went through this whole year of this fake addiction for it to turn out not to be true. He tried to trap me into a pregnancy, stuff like that on the larger scale.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you were able to get out of that
eventually.
And how did you do it? How'd you get out?
Well, he was out of the military, but he was still reserves. And he was away for the weekend on drill one weekend. And at that point, the previous week, we had a conversation. I guess if there was a straw, that was my straw. We had a conversation, and he basically blamed me for the entire relationship. Said nothing was his fault. Like, everything was my fault. And in my mind, like, something just snapped. Like, oh, this is not getting better. Life can be better. And so I just like made a plan for when he was away that weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have any trouble after?
No.
So once you made the escape, it was you were free and clear.
Yeah, almost.
Good.
I mean, yeah.
Good. Well, I'm glad to hear that. So, and the reason I ask all these questions, and I know they're not super easy to answer, but I'm sure there's somebody else out there going through similar situations, right? So what advice would you give somebody that's listening right now that may be in a controlling relationship, or maybe not one that's even controlling, but one where somebody is being mentally abusive or physically abusive? What advice would you give them?
All I can say is that I know from being there that you have to be ready to leave. So the only advice that I can give, ready or not, is to continue to work on yourself. You have to work on yourself and protect yourself in that way, because they're not going to. They're going to try and destroy you. And the more you work on yourself, the closer you get to being ready.
So what are you doing now to continue to work on yourself?
Well, that's actually, I mean, that would be honestly advice for someone that's been in that on the other side of it now. Like, there truly is it would be the same advice. Continue to work on yourself. When you're in a relationship like that, there's truly like a form of PTSD that comes along with it.
Yeah.
And to work on myself now, as far as that kind of stuff goes, I just constantly, I'm trying to always stay aware and conscious of my thoughts and my reactions, and reflecting on, like, okay, so you reacted this way to this. Where does that come from?
Sure.
And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't just let that stuff go, because you are like programmed in a way.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
Right. Is this my true thought, or is this a remnant of?
Is this a past Amanda
Sure.
thought? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. So what's next for you? When's the next book?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So you have the book, you have the blog, right? What is it? DeLiriousBliss.net?
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
And then what about, are you active on social media at all?
Yes. Delirious Bliss has a Facebook, and Delirious Bliss has an email. It's deliriousblissbook@gmail.com.
Nice. And what type of stuff do you put out to the community over on the Facebook page or on the blog?
I try and just keep it short and sweet, but just, maybe like things we come across daily, inspirational messages about thoughts we might have daily, and just a different way to look at them.
Well, kiddo, like I said, I love what you're doing. I'm so proud of you for writing this book.
You've been the best.
And the reason that I thought about you right away for the podcast is because I think it's incredible that somebody that you came from what we would consider an average childhood, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's no, you didn't come from great wealth or anything like that. You're just kind of a normal person that,
I don't know about that.
well, you've been through some extraordinary experiences,
Yeah.
right? And now you've done an extraordinary thing by, I literally have only met one other author in my life. So now you're number 2.
Aww.
So I think it's incredible that you can write a book, have it published, put it out there to the world.
You always make me blush.
And to be such a good book too.
Thank you.
I'm really proud of you.
Thank you very much.
I'm very glad that you decided to sit down with me and talk about it a little bit. And I know we got into some personal stuff, so I appreciate you being forthcoming about it,
no
because
problem.
I do think that this book, I think that your spirit and what you're doing will help people. I
Thank
really
you.
do. All right.
That means a lot.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And yeah, that's it.